Welcome back, Thrivers, to another fantastic episode of the Thriving Equine Professional. I am really excited for our guest today. This is one that I've been working on for a while. I always start out by explaining a little bit of the connection. So this is another person whom I have never met in person that I know of. I've been to Equine Affair, Coagi, but I don't think that you and I have ever really shared a conversation. But this one I will blame primarily on Pat Trowbridge. So I always like to give a shout out to my connections. And I've asked Pat multiple times, I'm like, okay, give me some more ideas for guests of who we need to have on the podcast and the stories that we need to tell. So shout out to Pat Trowbridge for introducing and connecting us. Whether we want to thank him, Coagi, or blame him, that's up to you. But with no further ado, I will introduce Coagi Long, who is here to tell us about her amazing career as the president and owner of Equine Affair. I think that needs no further introduction. I'm not sure there are many people that wouldn't know what Equine Affair is at this point, but Coagi, I can't wait to unpack your journey. Really, let's talk about where you started in Michigan and the fact that you have been with Equine Affair since 2003 and the roles you've held. So let's unpack a little bit of that. But with that, I will say, welcome to the Thriving Equine Professional podcast, Coagi, and thanks so much for taking the time to share with us today.
Certainly. Well, I'm certainly happy to be here and share with you, and excited to see where we can take this little journey and share a little insight with all of your listeners. It's going to be fun.
Yes, I do try to always have fun. So that's number one. We like to educate, engage, and entertain, as I say. So that's the objective here for today. So let's get our listeners started, Coagi, on your origination into equine. So were you the horse crazy young lady that grew up in Michigan?
I was, yes, I was indeed. Maybe not your traditional type of horses, but definitely started with horses when I was very young. Started riding when I was about 5 years old. But the unique part of it is that I grew up with Norwegian fjord ponies. So that was fun for me in terms of having something a little bit different, but also just having that horse connection. So my parents actually had a horse-drawn cider mill up near Traverse City, Michigan. And so that was
Wow.
kind of how we incorporated the Norwegian fjords into the family business, you might say. So my job really during the fall when we were making cider was to walk the horses around to help power the cider mill. So a little different tie in that way in terms of the family business. I also grew up riding Arabians and did some competitive trail riding, and also warm bloods and dressage. So a little bit of a varied background there in the very beginning, and decided that I really liked dressage and wanted to kind of pursue horses in some capacity. I think even when I was in kindergarten, I said I wanted to grow up and be someone that taught people how to ride horses. So
Yes.
I'm not quite in that exact capacity, but I didn't stray too far away from it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a huge part of what you provide with the platform that is Equine Affair. But what an interesting journey. I'm fascinated by not only the Norwegian fjords, but also the cider mill. That's so cool.
It
And
is.
yeah, so then how did that then take you to the University of Findley? I believe that's where you went to college. I think, again, for our listeners, that's a program that is really nationally known for the equine studies and the programs, both scholastic, academic, as well as extracurricular. So I want to also share just your experience with the Intercollegiate Horse Show Association. I think we were within a couple of years of each other going through
Mhm.
that, and just I know the power of the impact of the Intercollegiate Horse Show Association. So talk a little bit about your collegiate experience.
Sure. So I knew in high school at that point that I wanted to pursue the equine studies in some capacity. I did take a little bit of time to explore a variety of different colleges throughout the Midwest as well as the East Coast. So I made my list. I went and visited a lot of them. And really, it came down to the University of Findley being a great fit for me in terms of the program that it offered, and being very established in that, and offering a lot of hands-on riding on a daily basis too. and also being able to basically combine that with a dual major. So I was trying to give myself lots of options, you might say. Um,
Okay.
so I dual majored in marketing and business administration, and also have a minor in logistics in addition to the equine studies. So I was going in a lot of different directions throughout college, but also was very focused on the horses per se, and competed on the intercollegiate teams, both the hunt seat and the dressage team, which was just started in that time period.
Yes. So that is, really what I want to pick out of that is that it wasn't just equine for you. So many of my listeners that have been with me for this past year of this journey have heard me say time and again the importance of some sort of business and finance. And so I heard you say that. You said marketing, you said business, and then a minor in logistics. Now, we haven't heard that one before. So, Coagi, I want you to unpack that a little bit for us, and the impact that has had on your career, and maybe the importance of, was it a choice that you wanted to be a little bit more versatile than, I shouldn't say the word just, but I will, than just an equine studies or an equine major of some kind with nothing additional in a supportive fashion?
Sure. Excuse me. So yes, I was looking for marketing. I in high school, I really kind of felt inclined to go into the marketing avenue of some sort, whether that was graphic design or promotions or something along that nature. I didn't know exactly what, but felt like college would help me kind of direct that in a little more fine detail, you might say, getting more experience and more knowledge in the different fields. So I really was looking for general business as well, just trying to have a solid foundation in terms of how do businesses work. I knew a little bit from the family business, but I really wanted to have more tools in the toolbox, you might say, in going out into the big wide world, not knowing exactly where I was going to end up, and being as well prepared as I could. So the business administration certainly gave me some of those foundations, some of your budgeting, your finance, and then kind of merge that into both the marketing aspect as well, learning how to promote your company or yourself or a product or things like that. And really essentially was able to marry all three of those into my career. So it really, I think college was a great experience for me, just in terms of having different opportunities within the equine sector and outside of the equine sector. So my marketing and even the logistics professors were not within the equine industry, but kind of gave insight into their roles and their fields. And it's just kind of fun to be able to pick up different things from different industries and combine them all together.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so, with those experiences, did you participate in internships through your college career? How did that fit in?
I did. I did actually a lot of my internships in high school. So I did some graphic design. I did some other marketing. I did a I guess, self-designed fitness program for equestrians between high school and college as well. So I really, most of those were in college, or I mean in high school. In college, I focused more on the educational aspect in terms of lessons and promoting my skills in that manner. And
Yeah.
then went home to work in the summers too. So it was more in that aspect that I did my internships.
So I love that. And so we do have some of our younger listeners, because I get those questions. What should I be doing now? I'm still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And what great advice, because we don't really talk about the opportunities that while you're in high school, you can go out and get those internships. And so maybe some of those students need to hear that, the young people that are
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I want to be around horses and I have a passion for horses. How can I make that a career if I don't want to be a trainer or a veterinarian? Right.
Right, exactly. There are lots of options. And really, if you look at all of the different industries in the world, there's usually some parallel that you can connect it to the horse world. So you might not necessarily be a trainer, but maybe you're great with numbers. Maybe you can be someone that helps with finance or insurance, or going back to the marketing, you can help products of
Yeah.
all different types of things. there really is a niche for everybody based on what their skill strengths might be.
Yes. So let's then jump forward because I'm just ever so anxious to get to the Equine Affair story. Did you go straight to Equine Affair from college?
I actually did, yes. So, a graduating senior, there was a job posting on the job board at Findley, and it was for a marketing associate within Equine Affairs marketing department. And I applied for the job. I think I did sit on it for a couple of weeks, just thinking, is this something worth pursuing or not? But I did. I then lined up the interview, and they offered me the position, and kind of the rest is history in terms of getting started there.
Right. And that's what I thought. If I was doing the math correctly, you went straight there. So you're right. The rest is history. And I'm anxious to hear some of those details. So you applied as a, graduating senior from college, got into the marketing department, and you are now the president and owner of Equine Affair. There have been some life lessons learned along the way, I'm sure. So let's start at the beginning and tell us, what did you fall in love with, and tell us more about Equine Affair.
Sure. Well, starting in the marketing department, I was basically hired to coordinate the print projects, start writing some of the press releases, and really be a supporting capacity in the marketing department. And so that was kind of my first real job, and learning about how businesses work in a greater, bigger capacity. And I really enjoyed kind of the planning, the preparation, and then seeing everything come together at the events, and seeing the whole industry come together at the events, not only from the educational standpoint where we're providing opportunities for everybody of all different levels and all different disciplines, but also just to see horse people in general coming to have fun, not necessarily having to go to a show per se to compete, but just more of a collaborative environment where we all come together and have a similar passion for the horse. But it was really, you can see all of your hard work and effort come together into one event. And we kind of call it like Christmas within Equine Affairs. So
Yes.
you work all year, you look forward to it, and then it's finally there as the big celebration.
Yeah. And so from that initial role, how then did it begin to evolve for you as you stepped through what I call a career ladder within that organization?
Yes, certainly. So I was in the marketing department about 2 or 3 years, and then an opening within the educational program for the program director became available. And our president and management at the time asked if I would be interested in that particular role. So I loved the marketing, but then I thought, well, this could also be another great opportunity to kind of further myself in terms of really being creative and developing the educational programs and furthering my experience that way. So I did accept the move to the program department and started developing the educational programs, where I contracted the presenters that presented at each of our events, kind of worked with them to develop their titles. What topics are we going to focus on? When are we going to schedule this? And so it was really a big puzzle to put together, and that was in itself was another fun challenge, just learning how to make everything work. And that's kind of also where some of my logistics background came in terms
Yeah.
of making sure that, well, we have to transition from jumping to a round pen for colt starting and trying to build things timing wise efficiently and effectively, while also balancing it for the attendees in terms of making a path for them. If you're a Western right now, you might want to watch different disciplines, but you also might want to stay within just your vein. So making sure as a Western rider, you can go from one arena to another, and have a program for the day that would kind of fit your needs. So logistically, that was kind of fun and exciting for me as well. And then from a creative standpoint, helping to put the Fantasia shows together, our evening entertainment, was also a fun new thing to be involved in.
Yeah, without question. I couldn't wait for you to talk a little bit about that. because it truly is a production. But so first I will
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge I was about to say, okay, there's where your logistics education came in, right? In
Yes,
that
yes.
role. We all
Mm-hmm.
know what the schedule looks like for Equine Affair and the tracks and the arenas and the, locations. So that's pretty impressive in and of itself. But yes, anyone that has attended Equine Affair in recent history will talk about Fantasia. So how did that come about, and tell us a little bit more about that and the importance of it?
Sure. Well, Fantasia has been a kind of a cornerstone for Equine Affairs since 2001. So that was part of the program director role that I kind of moved into. There was another program director there who also had experience in putting the Fantasia together. So between her and the president, we kind of collaborated to say, okay, so what are we going to do for this show? And each one is new and different. So it's not like we definitely try not to do the exact same thing at every show, just to keep it new and exciting and something that everybody wants to come back to watch and see. So putting it together is always fun in terms of just brainstorming and being creative as to what we want to do, and then also reaching out to different professionals throughout the industry nationwide to see, hey, will you come and participate in this with us? It's a little bit of a unique production in terms of only doing it for 3 nights and not necessarily being a month-long contract or something like that. So it's a little different that way, but it's really a lot of fun just to meet different people who really have a passion for entertaining people as well.
And I would say it's not exactly a residency in Las Vegas, but in our industry, it's the closest thing I think that we can think of, right? As a
Yes, exactly.
residency. And
Yes, as
yeah,
a parallel. Correct. Yep.
yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's what it would be. So, and just really an incredible production. So then, from that role, how long did you spend in that role at Coagi, and what came next?
Well, in a lot of ways, I'm still in that role. It's still planning the educational programs and as well as the Fantasia. But in addition to those responsibilities, I became the vice president, and I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years later, and kind of was moved into a little bit more of your executive role in terms of management and overseeing different things business wise in addition to the regular program director responsibilities. So that that was another, I guess, rung up the ladder and
Right.
gave me insight into even more of what goes on in the business, that you kind of have a peripheral view of what it takes to make everything happen. But then moving into the vice president role, I really learned a lot more in terms of how things are all connected and working and collaborating and coming together for each event. So it was very eye opening in terms of having additional responsibilities yet again, but something that I was definitely willing and happy to take on as one of the leaders in the company at that point.
Yes. And I want our listeners to hear that because I think it's so representative of an actual career journey. And we hear a lot of conversations today, Coagi, about, our young people who want to pursue a career. And if we're looking at that ladder, they're expecting to be maybe 5 or 6 rungs up the ladder in our traditional sense of a career ladder. And I think that your journey, you didn't graduate college saying, I want to be the owner and president of Equine Affair. You took a job in the marketing department of Equine Affair, and it just so happens that 2 decades later, here you are. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful representation of what it takes. Can you speak to that from your
Absolutely, yes.
perspective?
Yes, certainly. And no, I didn't go into that first job thinking that it was going to be an end result. I actually wanted, well, my initial thinking was, well, I'll stick with this for a year or two and see how it goes, and then maybe I'll find something else that I do move on to. Fortunately, I had some opportunities within the company that were presented to me, and I was willing and able to take those opportunities and grow from them and learn from them and really turn it into a career for myself. But not to say that, I mean, I think everybody, especially in this day and age, you need to be ready to put in the hard work and dedication and realize that you're not always going to start at the top. A lot, probably the best thing that you can do is start from the bottom, show that you have the work ethic and the skills to do more, and then you will be recognized for that in most situations. So I would say really making yourself shine is going to help you really rise up the ladder the fastest.
Yes, incredible advice. And I knew that that was really kind of part of your foundation is be prepared. You say, be prepared to work hard, to be disciplined, and to demonstrate dedication. And so I thought that was just the perfect spot to say, this is exactly what you have done. And that, you know, as others look to us to say, how do you do what you do? How do you get where you are? That's really it. And it might not be all that fancy as far as advice goes, but that's really the bottom line here.
It is. Yes. It's kind of like your meat and potatoes. You have to have your strong foundation, your strong basics in order to really advance to the next level. And you have to push yourself too. Being regimented and committed to what you're doing and the cause and make yourself stand out is really part of the key.
I like that. You said make yourself shine. I wrote that down. That's my takeaway so far here.
There
for
we
sure.
go.
And so then as you kind of moved through the vice president role and I believe executive producer, so walk us forward from there.
Sure. Well, it was probably around 2016, 2017. Our founder and president at that time, Eugenia Snyder, was looking for the opportunity to retire, and she was mulling how to transition the company. Was she going to sell it? Was she going to turn it over to employee? Just what was she going to do? And she actually approached me with the idea of purchasing the company and carrying it forward. And we had a lot of long talks in terms of what that would look like and how we might go about doing so. And it just looked like it was another amazing opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And so we made it happen. So in 2018, June, actually, we struck the deal and I took the reins, and we've been running forward since then and happy to be here. So it's really kind of a unique and a neat story, but it's one that I think kind of is humbling for the equine industry or anybody going through or looking for insight into a possible career path. It's not always, I guess, this direct, but I certainly am thankful for the opportunities that I've had and continue to look to provide others with opportunities as well as we promote the industry.
Yeah, I mean, beautifully said, first and foremost, but there isn't a crystal ball. Right? There wasn't a crystal ball throughout, but it really was creating opportunities for yourself along the way. But I think about another piece of advice, Coagi, that you shared was that you encourage our listeners, you encourage young people, those passionate about the equine industry, to match your interests with your passions. And so tell us a little bit more about that and how that has served you.
Certainly. Well, I think when you're looking at possible careers, it is important to look at yourself first and see what resonates with you and what kind of a person are you. So if you're someone that really thrives in a physically active job, realize you're not going to enjoy a desk job. Are you somebody that is really creative, or are you more black and white and regimented? So really kind of looking within yourself first to identify or try to identify what works best for you and also what you enjoy doing. And if you're able to kind of connect the two of those, then I think you'll find that work, while it's work, it's not so much a job as something you enjoy doing.
Yes. So great. Like such great advice. And when we encourage our, especially young people, early career listeners to do just that, Coagi, do you think that comes really from our own self-awareness? Is that something that you worked on consciously as part of your professional development? Were there any assessments that you took or coaches that you worked with? What are some of the ways you might encourage young people to grow in their career by taking ownership of what you're talking about, our own self-awareness, our own self-development? How do you encourage that?
Sure, sure. Well, I think a lot of it can even start when you're young and coming through junior high school, before you even get to college. Just what types of classes do you enjoy? What kinds of sports do you enjoy? Do you not enjoy any of it? And sometimes by ruling out what you don't like, you can find what you do like. So it may not be just totally cut and dry. I think it's always great to have a lot of different experiences. I was fortunate growing up. My parents, every like spring break, we'd go somewhere to explore something new. So cultural enrichment was something that we were always exposed to in one way or another. And finding what, just giving yourself different opportunities. So maybe go try boating, go try a different type of class, whether that's computers or graphic design or something totally out of the box. And you'll kind of start to hone in on what works for you and what you kind of enjoy doing. And I think by finding some of those different opportunities, you can really hone in a little bit more with what you think might work for you.
Fantastic advice. I love that you said culture and enrichment were part, that
Yes.
we're just always part of your journey. I haven't heard it said that way before, and I think that really resonates. So I wanted to repeat it. So culture and enrichment. Oftentimes I will say, I ask the question, when is the last time you did something for the first time? And,
Yes.
so it's a less eloquent way of you saying, always make sure culture and enrichment is part of your journey and part of what you're doing. And the other piece of advice, Coagi, that you share is to explore your options. You've mentioned that some, but is there anything more specific that you want to speak to when you encourage our young people to explore your options?
I think options can really mean a lot of different things. One of the things I think can be definitely a game changer is finding some mentors that are willing to answer your questions, give you insight into what their journeys looked like, what challenges did they face, what do they wish they may have done different. And if they don't have the answers, maybe they can point you to someone else that does. So kind of, in a lot of ways, networking, if you can find a great mentor, then that can be amazing. But even if you don't find that one mentor, if you're able to talk to different people and really see what has worked for them or what hasn't worked for them and what advice they might have to offer, I think that can help shape your career and the path that you take as well. And I guess for me, learning at Equine Affair can also be a great opportunity, just because, especially if you're in the equine industry, you will have access to a lot of different professionals and a lot of different companies, and give you some insight that way too.
Without a doubt. That's one of my favorite ways too. And if you listeners have not been to Equine Affair, put it on your calendar. You've got two options, whether you want to go to the Big E, right, or you want to go to Ohio.
Right.
But get there, because I also, and I've even published a little resource called Navigating a Trade Show. I believe that when you go to events like that, oftentimes we are under leveraging the time that we have to network and make human connections that are live, they're impactful, they're powerful, and really doing it with purpose and intention. And that's a fantastic place to do that. There is no shortage of opportunities to learn, grow, and connect while you are at Equine Affair.
Exactly, for sure.
Yeah, so I didn't even think about that till you said it. And so listeners, if you need a little push on navigating and networking at a trade show or an event like that, go to my website, because there's one there, and that way you can get yourself scheduled to go to Equine Affair, and you can be prepared before you go, you can execute well, and you can follow up as well, because those things are really important. So let's talk a little bit more about your team at Equine Affair, because again, those are a vast opportunity of jobs that our listeners can think about. So how many folks are on your team at Equine Affair? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, believe it or not, we have a small core staff that produces some very large events. So each member of our team is integral to the success of the company as well as the production of the events. We have a few different departments, one of those being our trade show department that organizes the trade show and our sponsorship. So they are working with the exhibitors, the hundreds of exhibitors that exhibit at Equine Affair, helping them to secure their booth space, helping them find the right location. And there's a lot of strategy that goes into that as well. Both Hannah Stickles and Alyssa Geringer are in our trade show department. So there's two of them there working together very diligently to bring everything together. But they're not only working with the exhibitors, but they're working with each other to make sure all of the bases are covered, from kind of the financial collecting payments to assigning their booth space to making sure everybody has their materials ready to go, answering any questions, which lots of questions typically come in. We try to provide everybody with as much information as possible, but there's always random questions as well. So a lot of customer service in that aspect is expected too. In addition to the trade show, we have our breed pavilion and horse and farm exhibits. So that is coordinated by Jessica Anderson-Fiesel. And that role is working more with the associations that are kind of the breed associations from throughout the United States and even the world. And that has a little bit of a different slant. Just rather than working with companies, you're working more primarily nonprofit associations or rescues or individual farms to help them promote their purpose, whether that's a breed, whether that's standing a stallion, whether it's training services. So that has a little bit more of your real horses involved with it versus the trade show that is more company based.
Right.
We also have our human resources and business manager, Lori Helsel, and she coordinates most of our contracting. So she's kind of on our business side. She will negotiate all of our presenter contracts at this point. She also contracts our service providers. So if we need golf carts at the event, if we need our hospitality and catering, our security, she's kind of our point person on those items. We have my husband, Chad Long, who does some of our business outreach and networking. He's kind of responsible for recruiting and reaching out to new potential business, new contacts, just to, do you already know about Equine Affair? If not, how can we potentially work together and get you involved? And then myself. So I'm integrally involved in the business day to day, still planning the educational program in terms of who we're going to feature. And then I hand it over to Lori so she can actually contract them. Still coordinating the Fantasia and also kind of overseeing all of the day-to-day events in terms of budgeting and financing and making sure our event production schedules are ready to go. We have basically booklets on making sure our checklists are ready to go for each event. So we're very detail oriented in a lot of ways. And all of our departments really have to work together because there are a lot of different things that go hand in hand. And I think I left out Allison Renborg, who's our marketing coordinator, which is a very, very important part of the company. So she coordinates all of our press releases, our print pieces, our e-flyers, our digital marketing. She and I work together very closely in planning all of that. And so it's more than a full-time job, but it's certainly one that, I mean, all of our staff members are very passionate about what they do and the company that they're working for. So it's a pleasure to be able to lead them and have a great mission, I guess you might say.
Right. Yeah. An incredible brand and a great mission and vision, certainly. And so just to kind of recap for our listeners, that is a lot of opportunity for jobs. And so as we are early in that career and we're like, what am I going to do? What do I do with, horses, equine degree, anything like that? We're talking about customer service from a trade show perspective. I, for one, love trade shows. Not everyone does. And, so there's a lot of roles and responsibilities around that. I didn't even think about the horse and farm and the, kind of managing the associations and kind of how that looks for an event like yours. There are HR and business roles. You mentioned earlier finance, business development, sales and prospecting for business development, marketing. So I want our listeners to hear all of these roles that are a part of the equine industry, and they are opportunities for you to, be involved in the industry while also having and what I call a professional career, right? It's outside the barn, and
Right.
it's not a barn career, but you still get to be a part of this industry that we love so much.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for you, any pieces of advice, Coagi, that you would add for young people who are exploring career opportunities, for those that are early in their career? You've talked to us about being prepared, number one, but to work hard, be disciplined, and demonstrate dedication, matching your interests with your passions and exploring your options. What else would you say to those out there that are listening and just really want to be a part of all of this?
Certainly. I think one key point is to be involved. You have to take that step to enter the industry and be involved in order to be presented with different opportunities and work your way around or up or wherever you want to go in the industry. But you have to take that first step to get started. And then once you are started, I think you really need to always strive to better yourself. So it's easy to become complacent. Oh, I'm in, I made it. But at the same time, can't settle for just, well, I made it. You kind of need to always be looking for that next step and challenge yourself. So I think that will take you far in the industry and may set you apart from others if you're willing to go outside your comfort zone sometimes too, and really do the best that you can and learn from your mistakes. It's not always going to be perfect. So we can strive for perfection, but hopefully we'll achieve some great things as we're going along in that path to seek what we want to do best.
Yes, without a doubt. Anything else that you would share with our listeners specifically about Equine Affair? So you've got the fall coming up, right? So tell us where to find out more. So tell our listeners all about it.
Well, Equine Affair will take place, our next one, in West Springfield, Massachusetts this fall, November 7th through the 10th. And tickets will go on sale July 10th. So especially if you want to go to Fantasia, I would recommend getting your tickets early. And it's going to be another fantastic event. We're about to unveil our clinician lineup, and it's going to have some really fun features. We'll have a few new features which we'll introduce here in the coming weeks. I won't give you the I won't spoil it, but I think we're going to have a really fun time and some really great attractions that will not only help the industry, but be something that everybody can look forward to.
Awesome. And so Google it up, but it's equineaffair.com, I believe, is your website, correct?
It is, correct. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Any other websites or contact for socials, where do we want to send our listeners?
Sure. We are very active on Facebook, also on Instagram. We have started a TikTok. So yes, we're trying to cover all the different bases, even though I know TikTok's not so much allowed at this point. Who knows?
None of us know what to do with
away
TikTok.
Yet, but so yes, follow our socials, and our website will be your place to go for all of your information that you need to know. And certainly if there are listeners that have questions about the industry or looking for career opportunities, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer questions as I can.
Incredible. I love that. Now, before we go today, Coagi, I've been asking our guests this year 2 questions so that we leave our listeners with a couple of pieces of advice. So the first question that I'll ask you is, do you have one book or podcast that you would recommend to our listeners? And if so, why?
Okay, sure. So a book that I think is very valuable, especially as you're trying to develop as a professional, would be The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. And that book really encourages you to kind of reflect on who you are, what you want, and kind of outlines how you can get there or what steps you can take to make a change or achieve your goals, whether they're small. I mean, they can be as small as wanting to get better with a sales pitch, or it could be massive as much as like a big career change. So I think that book gives you a lot of insight, just makes you think about what are you doing and how you're going about it. And I think one of the statements that kind of resonated most with me from that book was the law of the rubber band. And that is something where it says your growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. So you want to keep stretching.
Ooh. Now, you have shared some wisdom today. The law of the rubber band. I love this. Can't wait to read that. I have not read that book, Coagi, so that gets added to my list.
There we go.
And I will think of you when I get to the law of the rubber band.
Sure. No, that sounds great. It's a great book. It's just kind of a good professional growth reference, you might say.
Okay. And so one more time, and it's the 15
Invaluable Laws of Growth by
Laws
John
of Growth. Okay.
Maxwell. Yes.
15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. Okay. Perfect. So much wisdom today. Okay. One final question for you is, what is maybe one piece of advice, and this is probably important coming from you with all that you do, but related to what I call life balance, that you would give our listeners in the face of today's hustle culture? I try to be really aware of what we're up against. I talk a lot about the power of connections and owning our time and things like that. Do you have some advice that you would give our listeners? You are clearly a wife and a boss. You're a president. You're an owner. You're a rider and a competitor. You've got all these roles in life. So give us your advice.
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, you kind of have to stay in tune to you and your body and what it's telling you. It's, especially as a striving professional, it's easy to become kind of hyper focused on doing everything that has to be done in your business. And I think you also have to not only listen to your body, but also value the relationships that you have with people or animals that are close to you, and understand how you fit into everything and making that work. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it works well, and other times, say you're feeling stressed and you feel like, oh, how am I going to get all of this done? Sometimes you just have to take a step back and kind of reflect, okay, well, this is one piece of the puzzle. I can set this aside for now while I focus on these other priorities. But I think you really kind of need to stay in tune to how you're feeling. And yes, there are times when you're going to have to push yourself beyond what you normally would like to do, but then at the same time also recognize when you need to take care of you and those around you.
Magic. Listen, right? Like, listen.
That's
you're
right.
saying,
Yes.
listen to yourself and listen to the world, own your energy. That's, just really incredible advice. So I know that is a conversation we will continue to have as, we continue to mentor, and as I like to say, champion the young people coming up behind us into, these opportunities and roles. And to your point, the power of mentorship and networking and those kinds of things. So, wow. Like, I'll have to go back and take some more notes, Coagi, when I listen to this episode again. But I can't, again, thank you enough for being a part of the Thriving Equine Professional. I was so anxious for you to be a guest here on the show. So I appreciate your time and your energy with us today. And listeners, I hope that you enjoyed this as much as I did. And with that, I will say have an amazing day, and we will see you back here same time next week. Cheers.